My name is Stanford Jacha. I am from Zimbabwe. I came to the United States last year in December, on December 15.
Stan was a program manager for a nonprofit organization called Peace Building and Capacity Development Foundation back in Zimbabwe. He is also a certified teacher with a first degree in English and Communication Studies and a master's in Peace and Governance Studies.
We have preschool. There's what you're calling elementary here is there as in primary school. We start in grade 1 up to grade 7. And Zimbabwe is an English-speaking country. From grade 7, then you start your high school education from Form 1 to up to Form 6. Form 1 to Form 4 is the high school years. Mm-hmm. Form 5 up to 6, you are more like pre-college years.
According to Stan, there are children who can't afford to pay for their education. There is a high population of children not in school. The UNICEF reports that the net attendance in primary school is about 90%, but then it drops to 50% in secondary school.
I decided to come to the United States because first it was the realization that back home in Zimbabwe things were not, there wasn't that progress to look forward to a future for my children, a future for myself. We decided for our children in terms of education, back home they were going to a very good school, but things became so expensive that we wouldn't even think of sending them. We were going to come to a point where we were going just not being able to send our children to school. My wife had experience through Boston University at one point when she was doing a master's degree, and she always wanted the same experience for her family. We flew in on December, we arrived at December 17. We left Zim on December 15. When we got to Arizona, we were staying with my sister-in-law who lives there. He's been in the States for a long time. So she really helped us get prepared, get ready. My wife and I applied for jobs here in Nebraska. And we traveled. We drove actually from Arizona to here. And it's exciting to be here. And the job that I do really is quite a fulfillment, to be able to help other people who are on the other side of the border, people who are running away from persecution and for things that are even beyond their control. It's really an honor to be able to be in that kind of a job.
Stan works for an organization called Lutheran Family Services here in Omaha, Nebraska.
My name is Lacey Studnicka, and I am the Program Development Officer for the Community Services Department. And that is, our Community Services Department exclusively serves refugees, immigrants, asylees, victims of human trafficking, and Cuban Haitian parolees. So basically our services really target welcoming the new Americans. And so it's really exciting to work with refugees because across the board what we find is that they're very excited for the opportunities that they're afforded when they come here. A lot of them have been in refugee camps for over 20 years, and they haven't had opportunity for employment, for education, especially for their children. And so when they get here, they're really ready to hit that ground running. In the International Center of the Heartland, we serve about 1,300 refugees a year. And then through our employment program, that's about 600. And our resettlement program, and this is in Omaha, and our resettlement program is about 478.
According to Lacey, refugees aren't the only people they help, however. Their doors are open to anyone in need, and they serve all immigrants. Acculturation is affected by a number of factors, such as the characteristics of the new community, host society, and demographics and psychosocial factors of an individual.
Transition into a new culture can be very challenging. And so that's one of the things that we really try to focus on, especially in my role. What I specifically do is I try to connect what we call the receiving community, or us Americans, churches, corporate groups, just neighbors, with refugees, because of the language barrier. The main barriers for refugees when they get here are transportation, language, and childcare. So in our community services department, our real bread and butter is our resettlement program. And what that is it's a federal contract, and we work with 2 national agencies that help bring refugees over from the camps. Those agencies are Lutheran Immigration Refugee Services, or LIRS, and Church World Service, which is CWS. And so every year we resettle around 400. Last year alone we did 478 refugees welcomed directly from the camps here in Omaha, and then in Lincoln about 120. So we are the largest resettlement agency in the state. What resettlement really entails is it's a very, very short program. So within 90 days, our responsibility is to welcome the new refugee family and really help them get their life started.
In those 90 days, Lutheran Family Services responsibilities are to make sure that the immigrants get their social security cards, get enrolled in English classes, make sure the children are enrolled in school, open bank accounts, and help the immigrants find jobs. When Stan was asked if he has maintained his home culture, he replied by saying that he believes that he has stuck to the same practices and beliefs that he had in Zimbabwe.
I've got family with me. You're going to miss back home a lot. I don't miss home sometimes, but I just get on the phone, talk to my father, and I've got my kids with me. That's my family, and that's the most important thing. Were they not with me, then it would have been another, kind of feeling as well.
We try to connect them with people to kind of visit them, because that isolation can be overwhelming. And we want them to feel welcome. We want them to integrate. We want them to feel like this is their home, because it is. They're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. And so that is one of the main challenges, is just creating opportunities for engagement so that people can talk to each other and build those relationships.
The first thing that caught my attention in the United States has been the courtesy. People are so courteous. People are so respectful. Because of the struggles that my people back home are going through, you tend to lose that. My first day driving, the kind of respect you get on the way from a fellow driver, you wouldn't get that back home. They'll shout at you if you make one silly mistake. They'll shout at you.
In the past year, Stan has accepted American ways, but his family still continues some of the things that they did back in Zimbabwe.
It's a way of life, culture. It's a way of a people's way of life, and maybe based on their experiences, their past, their historical, they shape up who they are and who they want to be. The values that they have and practice. I had to learn how to use information.
They have to learn a lot very quickly. There's no grace period. The most common things we teach are really that first night they get here. When you think about coming from a refugee camp and then being put into an apartment in Omaha, Nebraska, you know, even if it's 1 in the morning, our case managers and interpreters stay with them and walk through the entire house with them. So we teach them, here's a light switch, here's how to turn on your water, here's how to run a bath, here's how to use a toilet, here's what goes in a toilet, here's your beds even, because we found that a lot of times our refugees weren't sleeping in their beds, they were sleeping on the floor, and we said, no, these are your beds, and they said, only high, you know, people of high status sleep in beds. Well, these are your beds, you can sleep in them. And just those basics of functioning in their apartments, but then we have to teach them how to open a bank account, how to get it, you know, write a check, how to pay your bills, how to comparison shop at the grocery store because they are on food stamps initially, how to budget money, and especially too to how to set boundaries, because a lot of times they're leaving family behind in the camps, and those families have the illusion that they're rich now, they're in America, but they're not. And so they have to learn how to say, I have to take care of me now. I can't send you money, you know, even though their family may probably really need that money. So I would say anything you can think of, pretty much, we have to go over.
In Zimbabwe, we drive on the left side. Here is when suddenly I find myself behind a driving seat and have to drive on the right. I made lots of mistakes on that. And, you know, I could have been shouted at back in Zimbabwe, and to suddenly find myself driving, and our road networks there, they are very poor. You don't drive in, you know, you don't have 6 lanes going one way and all that. Here suddenly I find myself in this pool, in this ocean of cars driving in one way. It was really, really, really hard. I had to learn that very, very fast. Using the card, the bank card, that was hard. My wife always laughed at me. Just have to use this plastic money, punch a number, and that's it. Knowing your zip code, you just have to know your zip code. You have to keep it there. How many numbers do I have to keep in my head? That was really, really tough, you know. My kids always laughed too. Okay, we went for a milkshake, and because I was driving, I had to order from this side. My wife was sitting there. My accent, you know, I don't have an American accent at all. And the lady there attending to us through the mic couldn't hear anything I was saying. Said, no, guys, I think let's go inside and be pointing and showing what we want. You know, those little things were really disappointing. And I think if you don't have a support system around you, it's easy to give up. But for me, it wasn't, because you know, my wife had that experience here, and along the way we would joke about it. Whatever I would get wrong, she would chip in, or, you know, vice versa. So we were supportive of each other as we went along. Yeah. I can imagine if you're alone and you've never done that before. I see it now in the work that I do. It's really hard for people who knew nothing about the system here.
Stan has shown interest in learning American culture and integrating his beliefs in his environment, as well as helping out others who are going through the same situations that he did.
I'm friendly because I believe the process that I've myself and my family have gone through coming here requires friends. You need to have friends around you.
Our self-concept strongly influences the ways we perceive and interact with our social worlds. There's a deep influence of our culture on our self-descriptions.